Today we're going to talk about hard conversations and 7 practical tips to have hard conversations. This is my why. Flick, Jack, Charlie, Harry and Ollie are my why. I'm going to ask you, and write it down, who's someone you most respect in your life? Family member, parent, teacher, sporting coach, mentor. Have a think. Let's write it down. I then ask you, have they had a hard accountability conversation with you? Have they held you accountable? Hands up. 100% they have. 100%. And part of that is this continuum from support or empathy on one end through to accountability. This is what great leadership is. This is also what great management is. And in asking thousands of health professionals, why do you do what you do? It's going to be a version of, because I love helping people. And which end of that continuum do you think we're going to fall down as health professionals? Absolutely down this end. I don't know how to use the spotlight, but if I did, it'd be pointing there. So it's in our opportunity to be able to reflect. And this is the first practical tip. Reflect on where we are on that continuum when we need to have that hard conversation. We can still do it with empathy and care, but think about where we need to be to create the outcome that we need for that person sitting in front of us. Think about that time you had that conversation with the person who you most respect. How did they have that accountability conversation with you? Did it come from a place of care? But was it also that accountability conversation? I believe in you and you need to level up. Second tip, vision. This is a Jem Fuller ESIP model of feedback. And without going into a 3/4 of an hour Jem session, I'm going to try and summarise it. E for environment, vision, mission, values. Systems, what are our structures? What are our systems? What are our procedures? What are our scripts, as Bid rolled out before with Maddie? What are our implementation of those systems? And then who is the person delivering it? Functional and non-functional, Jem want me to say that. Let's not get down here by blaming the person. Let's not get down here by going, it's your fault, this is what you need to do. Let's stay up here with, I feel we're aligned with where we're going, what that looks like. Also feel like our expectations of each other and the systems that we have, are where they need to be. So what can we do to implement this system better? What can we do together to create that outcome? Let's stay up here. Vision, mission, values, systems and implementation of those systems rather than blaming the person. Win-win. Great foundational book if you haven't read it already. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Bless his soul. Think sustainable outcomes. It can't just be a win for our mentee or the person that we're speaking with, and it can't just be a win for the business. It needs to be a win-win outcome. That's what creates sustainable solutions. Create the space. So something happens, how do we feel? Something happens, a system hasn't been followed, insert any number of events. Our usual response is that kind of anxious, geez, that should have been done differently. Put time and space in between the event and our response. I'm not saying don't action it, because I'm going to get to action in a moment. I'm saying just put the space there. Digest it. Go for a walk at lunchtime. Put the space between the event and our response. Take away that emotion. Where do we have the hard conversation? If it is that we're in a clinic room, 4 walls, sitting across a desk from each other, we're creating part of that confrontation. We're creating part of that defense position. How about if we went for a walk together? Which I do like going with Andrew. To the footy tonight, hopefully. Is that okay? No. Let's go for a walk together. I love Trav's, I can't remember exactly what he called it, but walk and talk. Yeah, that he described earlier. I was like, that's an awesome name for a meeting. But if we create the space to have those open, free-flowing conversations, it's something easy, simple, but practical to do when we're having to have them. Action, as I described before. Hands up if we're guilty of putting that hard conversation off, hoping to get better. 100% we are. I love this and it applies in so many ways. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. The next best time is now. Create the space between the event and our response, but take action. Clarity. And to finish, the great Brené Brown and Maddie described this a lot in her learnings. And clear is kind, unclear is unkind. Cut the fluff. Still do it from a place of care, but be clear. Be clear and follow up with a Slack message that describes the outcomes you want. Be clear with those outcomes, and then what is the next step from there? To finish, what can you practically do to level up your next accountability conversation? What's that one thing that you're going to change? Like Beck said this morning, I'm sure you've heard a lot of these practical tips already. But rather than think, I already know this, let's think, how good are we at this? What can we improve on? How can we level up? So I want you to write down, when the implementation time comes, what can you practically do to level up your next accountability conversation?
You mentioned support versus accountability. I'm interested in your journey there through that. If you're able to reflect and understand that probably all of us identify with that starting off at support and then needing to move towards accountability. I'm really interested in your growth there, and if you can share some of that, please.
I think it's an ever-evolving journey, and I definitely don't think I'm perfect. I've got a lot to learn and continue to learn. But I think it's in these learnings, in these types of environments, where you start to get some perspective and some framework around what good leadership and what good management is, that it really helps you to level up and also reflect on some of those interactions you've had previously and why you've created some of the outcomes you have with team members. And I know for me, I've made a lot of mistakes. I continue to make a lot of mistakes. And that's okay. They're opportunities to learn and reflect. But I know early days in my management journey, I worked with Dom, who's the owner of Walk On, after coming out of university, and part of my role there after a few years was to start to manage team members. And I think I was way down the support end, but that came at a detriment of not actually helping that person to level up. And almost like I think it was a slide, wherever Beck is, the standards you walk past become your new standards. So if I say okay to that, or if I don't acknowledge that, I don't ask that person to level up because they've missed the mark, they think that's okay. And I did that a lot. So yeah, being able to reflect on some of those mistakes that I have, it'll continue to make, I think really helps me to be better today than I was yesterday. So that's where that self-reflection piece comes in as well.